You're listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, marriage, babies, life, and more. And today I'm joined by my good friend all the way from South Africa, Francois Muscat. Francois, thanks for joining.
Hi, good day, Peter. When you introduce it as two babies in a business and you've got an old timer like me, it's going to be quite interesting conversation.
Well, you know what? We just came back from Punta Cana where we spent some time and I got to meet actually your baby. And we talked about business. So I think it's perfectly appropriate, actually.
Excellent.
Yeah. So how was life in South Africa today? Speaking of business, everything's going well?
Well, in South Africa, we've got one major challenge at the moment, and it's power. So that's our issue. We've got serious power outages. Maybe they say 16 hours out of every 32 hours we are down. So
wow.
So we're scrambling with battery backup, solar generators, but we're making it happen. So we're good.
Wow. Yeah. So interesting challenges. I think challenges that obviously folks here in North America, I guess some can probably understand what that's like. I know they've had some power outages in different states and things like that, but yeah, definitely a challenge on top of all of the other challenges that are running a business.
Exactly.
Yeah. So today, actually, speaking of challenges of running a business, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Just to give everybody a bit of context, obviously artificial intelligence is here, and it's what looks like to be a pretty disruptive force. There's been a lot of changes. ChatGPT obviously was introduced in November, and that really opened the door for a lot of other things, and it opened a lot of people's eyes, I think, to what is coming. And so I know Francois is a digital strategist, amongst other things. He's definitely my go-to guy when it comes to all things SEO and digital strategy and sort of analyzing competitors and all those types of things. He's really good at that. One thing I really like about Francois as well is he's always been at the forefront of testing new technologies, testing new tools and innovations, and using all these different technologies and tools and innovations to really work better and come out with a better end product. So that's partly why I wanted to talk to Francois today about artificial intelligence, because obviously when it comes to creative industries, search, content writing, and a lot of the things that we do as digital agencies, I think AI is going to be a pretty disruptive force. So maybe we'll start off with that general concept, Francois. As a business owner and a marketing professional, why should people be paying attention to AI?
Well, Peter, the thing is, AI now, is helping you personalize a customer experience really quickly and easily. So you find that by using things like ChatGPT and some of the other tools, you can tailor your marketing messages, to the preference of the visitor, right? And I think people do enjoy a personalized experience. Mm-hmm. I think when we were at the conference a couple of weeks back, we saw examples of, when you would visit a shopping site, and depending on who you were, you would get a different message and a different call to action coming up from whatever product, like a men's clothing store or something like that. And that was fascinating, just to see how, the technology can change just based on the visitor. Yeah. So I think that is really key, from a marketing perspective, is to, take note of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and how about as a marketing agency owner, and have you been using AI yourself in order to create efficiencies and to do things, I don't want to say maybe better, but differently?
Yeah, definitely. It's new and nobody knows where it's going, but we're definitely, including it in all of our activities. One thing that you can see is that AI can help you do your tasks better, faster, and cheaper. So I think faster and cheaper, that's where it it comes into play. So definitely we are taking all of our services and our tasks and looking at how we can improve that.
Yeah. And can you tell me a little bit more about that in terms of, is this something you as an agency owner are sort of doing in a very deliberate way? Do you have sort of systems and processes for how you're looking to adopt AI? This is something we're talking a lot about at CIPR Communications, where we've actually now started our first stand-up meeting, weekly stand-up meeting. We have our second one coming up tomorrow, and we're just going to be defining our own processes internally on how we're going to kind of tackle this beast. And I'm just wondering, have you gone through a similar path for adoption of this?
Yeah, so what we've done is to get a list of all of our let's say service offerings and put them all into a spreadsheet. So it's best to take your agency's offerings and put them into a spreadsheet, and then look at each one and ask yourself the question, how can you integrate AI into this particular task or service delivery, so that you can improve it.
Yeah.
So there's so much. I can give you some examples of of the things that we're looking at. Definitely, we're very big into SEO, but content is what drives a lot of your SEO traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So AI, tools like Chat GPT, really enhance the content planning and the creation. So you can come up with some good concepts a lot faster than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
Have to do 20 Google searches. Now you can do one good prompt, and you pretty much can get a good idea of what what a content framework can look like, for a particular topic. And the things that we do is like with our Google ads, you can actually make your ads a lot more targeted and analyzing a lot better. So we've definitely seen that immediately. We were able to do this A/B testing a lot quicker than we did in the past.
Yeah.
And when it comes to SEO, it does take quite a long time to plan an SEO plan when you do your keyword research and then you map all of this to your web content. So we're seeing that the whole on-page optimization part of SEO, you can use AI to help you with that, because it's pretty much taking best practice.
Yeah.
But you mustn't lose track that you do need some strategy involved, right? So I think one of the things AI does well is it can do one task really good, but I don't know whether it takes a holistic view of what your strategy is and what your competitors are doing. So you do need to I think look at your planning and competitor analysis, blueprints, things like that can map onto your company's goals, for the business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're going to talk about strategy here in a minute. I want to touch on something else before we do that. But before we do that, I'll tell you a little bit. So I'm obviously experimenting a lot, playing around, seeing what works, what doesn't. And I put a prompt into my ChatGPT 4, which is the one that connects to the internet. And I said, given Google's recent algorithm update, can you please review my website and let me know how I'm doing from an SEO, but something like that, not exactly those words. So ChatGPT actually went onto my website and did a review. It actually didn't really come back with that much that was useful. I guess it said that I was doing a lot of things right. So that was really good to see. So I'm going to be playing around with prompts like that as well to look at maybe some websites that aren't optimized, see how it comes out, see what it says. So certainly, that was an interesting sort of thought experiment, which we're doing a lot of. But you mentioned SEO, and I'm curious about the topic of SEO because I think it's going to be very disrupted by artificial intelligence, by things like ChatGPT. Whereas you mentioned yourself, whereas before you might go to Google and do 20 searches on a topic, now you might go to ChatGPT and in 1 or 2 searches you might get a really good idea of what that topic's all about. So as an SEO practitioner, as who I believe to be one of the top SEO people that I know. Can you give me your thoughts on sort of AI, ChatGPT, and how these tools might change search?
Okay, so I think if we look at right now, then I would think that ChatGPT can help with your on-page creation and setup, right? So definitely going to give you best practice for on-page. But now that's available to everyone. So like, how are you going to get Google to choose you first?
Right.
You're back to the same situation. And that really gets back to, link building, right? And links, because that's the only way Google can determine the popularity of one site against another. So definitely, I see the setup AI helps, but the link building, it cannot do that. It might
Right.
help you with the content you write to get to the links. But what's a bit unknown at this stage is this SGE. It's Google Search Generative Experience, right? That's just been announced just recently.
Just a couple of days ago, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of days back. Now, looking at that, and I don't know what's going to happen, right? Because what's happening now, Google's going to provide you with a unique summary for a long query. So instead of you doing multiple searches, it's going to come up with all of this, and it's going to give you all that data. And I don't know if it's going to give you links, right? So so if they're not providing links, how do you get to the content that you and our customers want, right? To generate. However, reading a little bit deeper into it, Google says yes, it's still their intention to drive web content, with links. But if you look at some of the examples of this SGE, you can type a search in it. Let's say you want to go on holiday somewhere, and it talks about, let's say, somewhere in Canada. And then you can ask it another question, and it still knows you're talking about Canada, right? Even if you don't mention it again. So the conversation that you would have with Google, it still takes the context of that original search. Now, that's crazy, right? When you start to think about it like that, because how do you get your website in front of Google, for your visitor? Yeah. So I think the challenge there is, I noticed they've got like 3 links. So we might have to start thinking about AI optimization for SEO. So how do we appear on those main 3 links? But, from the conference that we were at, it was quite interesting to see Mark Kaput. He's an expert at AI, and he was saying, like, you need to still focus on the human part, and those conversations that we had, you're in the right place, with PR and public relations. We have to bring the humanity to it. And the one thing that came to mind was you have to build the brand name SEO, right? Like normally that happens, but I think you need to do it a little bit more now, as opposed to just CRPR. You've got to go CRPR SEO services, CRPR EPC services. So bring your service and your brand, collectively together. And then by using PR, you're going to get the word out. And then the other thing is to stay human. And what better way to do it than what you're doing right now, with a podcast, live people, and, having a conversation, hopefully that shows, some depth and expertise. So I think this is the type of services that we have to start thinking about. So the way it's going to affect it is, SEO definitely, we're going to have so much more content. But if you're not smart about what you're doing, ChatGPT is going to be giving you pretty much the same thing, right? Unless you ask it or teach it a little bit more.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting to watch. And I've been thinking a lot about, kind of the things you're talking about, obviously PR, brand building, community building, more human, as robots take over our lives a little bit more, or get more intertwined in our lives, humans, I think, are going to want to be more connected, right? So I think we're going to have to think about that. And certainly from a Google search perspective, I expect to see search volumes go down across the board for pretty much all businesses, but commercial intent of those searchers, like, you might actually get better quality searchers coming to your website. So the ones that are actually coming to your website are the ones likely that have an intent to buy services or buy products or buy from your business, right? So, less people maybe searching just for the purpose of research, but more people searching for the purpose of making a purchase decision. So, ultimately, I think that's what businesses want.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think for us as marketers, it's going to be a big education for our clients in terms of, hey, geez, my search volume's down. And often that's I call a vanity metric, and it's like, well, what's happening in terms of transactions on your website? And what's happening in terms of people reaching out and phoning you and those types of things? What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. I think the whole human side is important. And a classic, an example, it actually happened to me like 2 days ago. What I've been doing, I send out, we've got a team of 25 in our agency, and I'm getting people, I read and I send them articles to read, and I say, tell me what you think about this article and how could we use it, with our clients or any projects. And, I got 20 answers coming back. And all of a sudden, I could see ChatGPT speaking to me because I was just following them. So I went back to the team. I said, "Are you using ChatGPT to respond to me?" And many of them were doing that. And I said, "Well, don't do that, because I may ask Chat just to give me 20 responses to what I'm asking. I'm looking for your brain, right? To tell me what's going on." So I think that's a very good thing to take back, is to say, when your clients are going to come to us and say, we want to use AI more for that, I think the person on the other side will want some human side to it, So definitely that's what I see. The human part is important.
It's really important. And I see companies making big mistakes by jumping in too quickly and over automating. And I see, to your point, that frustrating and annoying people, not doing it right, not taking it slow. So, I mean, there's this balance of really jumping in, because I think we all need to, and sort of do it quickly, but also do it correctly and be deliberate and slow down a little bit, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note, I mean, you talked about things like strategy, blueprint, competitive analysis, research. I mean, I think that obviously, AI is going to be disruptive to some of these different things that I know that that you do really well. And so, can you tell me a little bit about how companies should be incorporating strategies, digital research, blueprints into their thinking as they're developing their AI strategy?
So, we've been doing these blueprints and competitive analysis for a while, and it's really important. As people's internet presence grows, and many of them reach a point of stagnant, and they're not sure whether they're getting the right performance. So, if you just took AI and try to, work with it, and what I noticed, I've been taking my digital marketing blueprints and taking each section and seeing how I can use AI to speed it up, right? Because it takes me 3 weeks to do these things. So I can do persona exercises really well with AI if I give it enough information about that persona and content back. And I can also start to do like a SWOT analysis of some companies. It tends to bring some of that out pretty well. So why do you need strategy, right? So you need it so that you can get more marketing eyes on your business, right? There's pretty much our web presence is to get as many impressions as possible that are around our brand and our services. So if you just take an isolation, and of course, you got to do it by cost, how much you're spending and what you're going to get from it. So there are so many channels that we have to use in digital marketing, whether it's PR, Google Ads, all types of social media channels that you could work on. If you just took each item and you said, "Oh, I'm doing social media today, so I'm just going to get ChatGPT to generate my posts," and keep sending that, all you've done is maybe speeded up what you're doing, but it's not fitting into the bigger picture.
Right.
So the bigger picture, I think, comes out of the analytics, right? So if you're going to use all the digital marketing tactics like paid ads, SEO, social media content, and so on, you need to be using Google Analytics to identify which one's performing the best, where your clients are coming from, and also track like the customer journey. So all of those things, AI doesn't give that to you right now, just looking at your website. So I think customers might be thinking they can do things a bit quicker and cheaper, but I'm not sure they're going to change the result if they haven't got a plan behind it, right? So I think that's the point.
Sounds like maybe it could speed up people doing things incorrectly and get them doing incorrect things faster, which isn't necessarily the right direction, right? It might take them down a path even quicker, right? So.
Well, you've seen when we do content audits, right? Someone can have 100 blog posts and there's only 5 of them that are doing anything.
Yeah.
Well, now you can generate 500 blog posts, right, with AI in the same time. Is it going to change what you've done? Don't know. So I think that's the part, the strategy and the analytics of the two. And certainly, Google GA4 is actually built with AI and predictive predictive tasks and where people are going to maybe convert. So I think that's where I see blueprints, planning, and one thing as well is the competitor tracking, not just competitor analysis. If you don't track yourself against a competitor, how do you know what secret things they're coming up with? Maybe they've hit onto some topics that are working really well. I think GPT not going to help you with that, So it won't tell you if they're spending more on a certain area, which is what you can do, with a plan.
Yeah. I actually think that now, as you're talking, it's really making me think about the importance of probably investing more in strategy than ever before, because as competitors are also going to be obviously adopting AI and putting in their own strategies and tactics, and either, speeding up and going in the right direction or speeding up and going in the wrong direction. But we certainly want to be watching our competitors a lot more closely now, because I think the world is going to change so quickly and be disrupted so profoundly potentially by this, that if we're not paying attention and sort of redefining our strategies constantly in context of this change and this disruption, then I think we can find ourselves very far behind very quickly. So I think really being really keen and on top of a strategic approach and going back to that strategy and relooking at it. And one of the things I told my team, and this is sort of in context of AI in general, but I think this is maybe in context of AI and digital strategy, is maybe we looked at something 6 months ago and it didn't work that great, but maybe we should look at it again, because when you talk about AI tools, in 6 months they could have released three different versions of that same tool in a completely different tool, right? And similarly, in 6 months, search could change, or paid could change, or new channels could happen. Like, there's going to be a lot of change happening really quickly. So I think just really staying on top of strategy with somebody like yourself and somebody who's really paying attention to kind of all these different tools and these disruptions, I think is a very, valuable thing to do.
Yeah. So the one thing, if you remember Dan Monahan's keynote on AI and automation, he said one thing was really interesting, a simple thing. He says, if you don't jump on the AI wave, you're going to get washed away with it, right?
Yeah.
And that to me was interesting, because we don't really know where it's going, but we all better be on that wave, not knowing where we're going, because when somebody works it out and you haven't bothered to even try and work it out as well, that's your competitor, right? So that's why I say, if you're not tracking your competitors, this is moving so fast. I can't even, none of us can keep up, right?
Yeah.
So it's that part of it, I think, is key, is get on, try it out, but focus on where it can make a difference.
Yeah. And that's actually the reason I'm doing this podcast series, because I started actually after coming back from that conference, I started every conversation with a client I started asking them about AI, and just sort of open-ended questions about AI, and really I literally got an answer saying, oh, I was just hoping to bury my head in the sand and wait for this whole thing to be over. That's literally something somebody told me, and I thought, man, I better start talking about this, creating some awareness, just sort of raising the volume on this topic a little bit, because people really aren't paying attention. It really surprised me, and I was paying attention before the conference. I think the conference definitely woke me up to a new level of attention. But honestly, I think that a lot of companies and a lot of people out there are not even thinking about this at all, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people really quickly.
Absolutely. What you're doing, like with this series, is really great. I think it's to bring, the awareness, to business owners. I think as digital marketing agencies, we're the ones that are, have this fear, right? Because it's going to affect us, right? So it can make us better, but it can also maybe make some of what we do, let's say, not obsolete. I think what's going to happen is our customers are going to be more involved.
Yeah.
I've really seen them being able to write their own email marketing newsletters by asking ChatGPT to say what they want them to say. So they don't need to ask you and me to write it and spend all of their time. They can actually get going with it. So we might maybe give them some ideas and planning around it, but we might not do all the work. So that's why I like the idea of the strategies and the blueprints, and even those fractional CMO that we were talking about, where you're helping companies, bring this all together because it's really moving so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that, because I was also thinking about, really the value chain and the ability to, AI can help companies move up the value chain faster in terms of the types of activities. So, if I think about the marketing value chain, I mean, you talked about something that's probably pretty basic, like writing sales and email marketing, newsletters and things like that. So a lot of companies aren't even doing that. So maybe this allows them to just get into the game, right? Whereas other companies that are maybe doing that, maybe now they can have some smarter emails, with some customization and some other features in it, right? And it kind of can go up the value chain, fairly quickly in terms of now for fully personalized, automated emails, is sort of the highest sort of part of that value chain, right? So I think it really depends on where companies are starting from. But the good news is that I think this allows a lot of companies to catch up fairly quickly if they decide to. But unfortunately, I think also the ones that decide to do nothing with it are, to your point, going to get washed away by the wave pretty quickly. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Before we kind of conclude here, I want to maybe ask two more questions. One is, what are some cautions you would have for people as they're thinking about AI and implementing it in their organizations?
Well, I think, in what you're reading, there's a couple of things. One is maybe AI's bias, or maybe like facts that are not, true, because it doesn't always know. You must remember, it's just being fed information.
Yeah.
I think if you're training it a bit, that will help. So I think just taking everything at face value, you need to worry about that, specifically if you're delivering a service to your client, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you haven't told them that. Secondly, it seems to be a big privacy thing with it, and I didn't realize that at first until I see Apple stopping them using, Samsung, stopping AI, and realizing that their staff, who are now encouraged maybe to use AI, like my team, and say, right, feed it some stuff, but they don't want you to feed it their IP, right, to the company. Right. So that, I think, even though you can switch off it remembering what you do, right?
Yes.
You can't do that. Maybe people won't trust that. So I think that is a big thing.
Yeah.
The other one is, don't use AI generated content as is, right? So I think it's a caution. You should add a human touch to it. And I believe in being transparent with your clients, right? So if you are using AI to deliver some of your service, tell them that you've done that, right?
Yeah.
So, we brainstormed your content with AI, and we've edited with a human being, and this is what we got, right? Yeah. So they understand that piece. And the biggest thing, because it's a big content thing for people with it, Google, is going to reward content that is helpful, and certainly that's what they say. And they said it doesn't matter who generated the content as long as it's helpful. Mm-hmm. But one thing they added onto it, which if you don't read it or listen to it, is they said they're still going to take into account the EEAT of the content, which is the experience, the expertise, the authoritativeness of the person, and the trustworthiness.
Yeah.
So whatever content you publish, you should be having that author bio that shows a person who's involved with it. And so they sort of opening the door for them to not maybe accept, pure AI generated content by doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's important not to take, I think, just the standard content. It's not going to punish you, but it's not going to look at it in a way that it was an expert that did it,
Yeah, no, those are all some great cautions. And I kind of listened to a podcast the other day that actually, you mentioned IP, but there's a question, at least in the United States and probably in other places, as to whether content purely generated by AI or content generated by AI will be protected by intellectual property legislation. And there's some interesting debate about that. And that's a big implication if it's not, right? So again, and what does that mean, right? So is it if ideation was started by AI, but it was finished by a human, if the whole thing was written by AI, whereas there's a lot of gray area as well there, right? So there's, I think, a lot of questions still that remain unanswered. And I think, like you mentioned, the privacy, the accuracy, the biases, some of these intellectual property questions, these are big questions. And really how organizations like Google are gonna look at this content and how it's created. And so no, you're 100% accurate there and right on. So final question before we drop off here. What are your favorite AI tools that you use today?
I'm so scared. There are so many of these tools around,
Right.
and challenge is that everything is moving at a very fast pace, right? So what I'm doing, as I said earlier, I focus on taking each service and seeing what I can do like today to take advantage of it. I know there are so many other tools out there that can do video and things like that. I haven't played with it, but if I look at my favorite right now that I'm using, certainly ChatGPT, the version 4.
Yeah.
And I'm using that as a virtual assistant, right, as well. So it's actually quite interesting. I was showing one of my clients today how you can take a sitemap, WordPress sitemap, just copy all of that URLs and all that stuff there, just chuck it into ChatGPT and say, extract the URL and the blog post name in 2 separate columns and give it to me, and just forget the rest, right? And it does that. It's like incredibly quick and amazing. So virtual assistant, content planning, and then researching personas, I use ChatGPT. The other one I got into straight away was Quillbot, and that takes whatever, it's a grammar checker, plagiarism checker, and a summarizer. While you're typing, you can take a ChatGPT thing and it'll make it a little bit more human. So it just wants you put that on. Then I use Fireflies. I think you're using Otter on this.
I'm using Otter, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, that's AI, right? So taking notes for us and summarizing all the key points. I think that's, those are the ones that I find are really helpful. Like this is helpful for you to have this, this whole thing transcribed, ready. And then the one that I actually got into 2 days ago was course.ai. And this thing will build an online course for you for free. And I was talking to my friend, he's a photocopier. He runs a photocopier franchise, and like what he knows about technology is not a lot. And he didn't really know about ChatGPT and that. So we had coffee, he was excited about it. So I went back and I took this course.ai and I said, create me a sales training plan for a novice to sell photocopiers in South Africa. And it pulled this whole thing out with exactly what you had to do, what the quiz was at the end, and I sent it to him. And this morning he came to me and said to me, this is exactly what I need. Now you can realize I could take my furniture removal company that I do SEO for and show him how to do a course so that he can train his staff or something along like this and get them qualified. So there are these tools that come up, but if you can find something that you can use today rather than trying to aim for the next silver bullet that you're not sure of, right? So I think it's riding the wave, not like waiting for it to come to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to try that course making tool for sure. And I think as you talked about, think about even just internal training programs and how to develop. Like it doesn't have to be for anything external, but just how to. Here's your standard operating procedures, and here's a training course on how. And then you could probably use AI to have like a little AI made video to kind of walk people through it and make it engaging. I mean, you've really got me thinking now, so that's pretty cool.
No, absolutely. I think further episodes of this could be AI around industry and the way you could use it just internally. I think this is the added value that we can add. As agencies, you can, as you said, you're speaking to your clients and they want to put their head under the sand, right? But you just do it and send it to them and say, look at that. And they go, I could do that. Totally. I think it's a tangible example, which is key.
I love it. Nice. Excellent. Well, hey, thank you for your time, Francois. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that people listening got some value out of it. I'm sure they did, because I know I did.
Oh, thanks, Peter. It was really nice to be on your show today, your podcast. Thank you.
Talk again soon.
Okay. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Two Babies in a Business. To learn more, visit ciprcommunications.com or catch us on our socials at CIPRcoms.